This is Conversations
with Ronnie Keith
and Iris. All right. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of
Conversations
with
Ronnie Keith
and Iris. Thank you so much, everybody, for all of your support. We really appreciate it. You guys have really done a great job of listening, supporting, downloading,
listening and sharing.
Yeah,
I love it. We gotta remember. We gotta remember them. Hey, download, listen, and share.
That's right. Absolutely. And we're not going to go through. We generally do it from time to time, but we're not going to go through the different cities and countries that have downloaded us. But we do want to just give a shout out to all of you guys that are listening to us in the United
Supporting
States,
us.
Germany, St. Kitts.
Oh, and let's not forget the fan mail that we receive.
Yes.
Oh, we appreciate the love. When you guys send me fan mail, I get so excited.
Absolutely. Remember to continue to send it to us. When you open up the app, wherever you listen to us, whether it's Spotify, Apple, iTunes, YouTube,
Google Pods, all that
Google
stuff.
Pods, all those things. Well,
and all streaming platforms, pretty much. Yeah,
it's
There's
right
no
there
excuse.
at the top where it says text Conversations with Ronnie Keith and Iris podcast, and so you can text us.
Yeah,
that sends us the fan mail,
and let them know it's anonymous too.
Yeah.
We don't see your name; we only see the last 4 digits. So hey, ask away.
That's it. So, and again, Australia, Japan, Ukraine, France, United Kingdom, Canada, Philippines, Sweden, Romania, all these different countries and territories have downloaded Conversations with Ronnie Keith and Iris, and we just really appreciate it. Today,
Thank you.
It's no exception. We have an extraordinary guest that's coming on.
Yes. Today we have the pleasure of speaking with an incredibly talented actor and storyteller, Matt Drago. You may know him from his role as Fabian. I like to say that because Spanish is my first language. Fabian. in Somewhere in Montana, as well as his work in projects like What Would Jesus Do? The Journey Continues, Riley Scott's Prophets, and Science and Fiction. And he even has a hit audio drama, No Other Way. But that's not all. Wait a minute now. Matt is also a filmmaker and a 4th degree black belt in karate. So an all way around powerhouse in this industry. Matt, welcome to our show, sir.
Ronnie, Iris, that was a wonderful introduction. Thank you so much for having me today. And I got to be honest, I'm never going to be able to think of my character as Fabian without thinking about Fabian now.
Fabian.
So, I like it.
That's wonderful. So, Matt, again, thank you. We really appreciate it. I know that we have a million questions for you, but only in a short time. I know my first question.
I gotta ask him.
I can't even start my first question.
I want to ask him the first
Go
question.
Ahead. Go right ahead.
So, before we get into your acting journey, just tell us. I have to ask: karate and acting? That's quite of like a mix. Do you ever find ways to blend those skills together in a role? Tell us the deal.
Absolutely. That's a great question, Iris. I honestly feel like the two have kind of collaborated within my own life. Growing up with my father, who is my sensei, in a dojo. His dojo has been in the same spot for decades and decades and decades. It's actually one of the longest dojos in the same spot in the country in Front Royal, Virginia, the Front Royal Karate Club. And it just really honestly became a family for me, an escape, but a self-practice, because the type of martial art that we do is Okinawan Shorin-ryu. So it's an old school karate practice. We're not looking to get trophies. We're not the kind of, school that my dad kind of says is like American sport karate, where, kids are wearing pads and learning how to fight each other. No, it's a self-practice. It's about your belt is your trophy. And it's all about being kind of the peaceful warrior, which is kind of something that I've always reflected in my practice as an actor, because it's all about process, right? And you have to
Hmm.
enjoy the process, like the journey is the destination, and you find ways
Yeah.
of doing that because there's bumps and bruises along the way, just like there is in karate, right? But
Absolutely.
you find a way to persevere, and you find a way just to kind of have your escapes,
Yeah.
within your practice of acting. So the two have definitely aligned from an early age. So a great first question. That was great.
Yeah, definitely. And Matt, it's amazing that you say that because a lot of times when you hear about people growing up and saying at a younger age they got started with karate, at some point it stops for them, right? Like they stop after maybe elementary school
Yeah. They
age,
don't
middle
continue
school.
the journey.
Right. And
Sure.
so for this to be more of a family thing and you to be integrated with this, that is wonderful. And for you to be a fourth degree black belt, that also means that you're a lethal weapon.
Yeah, you could kick some butt.
It's so funny that you say that. I've been, going in middle school, knowing, high school, and knowing everybody knowing me as the Karate Kid, right? Everybody
Mhm.
always asked like, how many fights have you been in? And it's just it's silly, but like I really do. I've never been in a fight in my life, and I think it's because I know how to carry myself. I always said that like if I was to get into a fight, it probably would be protecting somebody I love,
Right.
and
Oh, I love that.
and diffusing situations is something
Mhm.
that you get good at as a real martial artist, because nobody really wants to get into a fight. I mean, I understand they look great in the movies, but in real life
Right.
they're ugly, they're messy, that you don't
That's
well,
right.
you don't want people don't shouldn't be fighting each other,
That's
and
right.
we need to
Absolutely.
move past that. So I think that the Okinawans, specifically, I'll go off on a tangent. I actually got to go to Okinawa with my dad for 2 weeks,
Oh,
Oh,
and
wow.
it changed my life. Like it really did, because it was about learning their culture, and their culture,
mhm.
ironically, they're some of the longest living people in the world in Okinawa. and
Mm.
and they just
Wow.
like they showed us around the island. They showed
Mhm.
us what they're about, and you have to remember, like, their practice was, they're mostly farmers, so most of the
Mm.
weapons in our style are, a bow, which is, used to fish, a sai, which is used to till the land, tonfas, which are used to mash the grain. We have an aku,
Mm.
which is an oar, so they were defending themselves with the implements that they had. But the practice of,
Oh, wow.
being on these decks with, grandmasters that were like in their 80s and 90s was
Mhm.
just extraordinary. And, they really did. They see it as an art form, and they really, gave a lot of us in showing us and being proud of their island. And I can appreciate that because I actually just went to Sicily last year, and
Oh my
that
goodness. Oh,
that's where
nice.
that's where my family's from, and it's a trip I've always wanted to take, and it really connected me back with my roots. So I've always, I think, as an actor, been fascinated, just like in constantly learning and growing as a person. And what better
Mhm.
way to do that than as an actor?
I love
That's
that. Such a
fantastic.
beautiful journey with your karate. And I feel the love that you have for it and your dad being your sensei, your journeys. I'm so intrigued already. So I'm very excited to hear the passion that you have behind it. And tell us a little bit more as we move on and talk about the early days of acting. Like what led you to acting?
Yeah, I really honestly felt like I had it inside me from the moment I arrived on this planet, right? I really was just a kid from humble beginnings, growing up in rural Virginia. Both of my parents originally from New York City, but had moved back to Virginia and met there. And so I kind of felt like I had the best of both worlds pretty early on. My grandmother living in New York,
Wow.
and my parents kind of being New Yorkers, but also being in Virginia. It just really gave me that, child, hood of reflection. And I really feel like I was one of those kids that didn't need a lot of toys. I just needed my own creativity, my own imagination, and my friends, my support group. And from there, there wasn't a lot of TV and film at the time, so I found myself at age 4 in my first local theater. And I just probably did about 15 to 20 local theater shows growing up. I just really loved being around people and collaborating, and learning the different skills that, it took to put on a show, whether it be lighting it a certain way or getting the sound just right, or, building the sets. Like, I just really loved the immersion of, the practice of telling a good story and hoping that it would impact people. And then something really amazing happened with me, which is ironically my first paying gig was dinner theater. And I did
Oh, wow.
in Fredericksburg at Riverside Dinner Theater. And, obviously it was really cool to, get paid for what I love to do, but it really also taught me a lot of, the work that it was going to take to go in this. Because you have to remember, dinner theater, you're on stage, and then you're off stage, clearing plates and refilling drinks. So it's a very humble practice. And I really did. It taught me from an early age that, like, I could be a dreamer, but it was going to take work and it was going to take sacrifice. And that's something always that I've admired doing, whether it's waiting in long lines for auditions, sometimes not even getting seen in New York, but like being there, showing up. I think that is so much of the practice that I've learned growing up in a dojo. It's just about being diligent to
Mhm.
what you love and making sure
Mhm.
that you're willing to fight for it every step of the way.
Absolutely. And Matt, you said something there, and I want to have you educate our audience here a little bit. Dinner theater. What does that all entail for those that are listening that may not have any idea what that is?
Yeah. I mean, it's basically a full on, immersion experience where you show up about 2 hours before a show and, you get a full meal. There's like kind of like a little happy hour, and then you come in and, there's a salad course and an entree and a dessert. And once you get through that full meal, typically is when the show begins.
Mm,
And,
that's a
you
bad
just
That
thing for
sounds
me because
good. Yeah.
it's about time for me to take a nap after that.
It kind of reminds me of the movie. What's that movie that Christina Aguilera did with Cher? Burlesque. It was kind of like
yeah,
something
burlesque.
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why that just came up to my mind, and I love that movie. I don't know how come it did so bad, but I love it. I just wanted to
Yeah.
add that.
But you're absolutely right. It is that kind of environment. It's an all-inclusive kind of night out where instead of going to dinner and a show, you are at dinner and a show at the same time.
Mm,
Oh,
We
that's
do serve
cool.
coffee, Ronnie, just so you know. So
okay.
we can keep you up, and hopefully the show's good enough to keep you going. But
Right.
yeah, I mean, it really is. And I actually, that's so funny because I actually did two of the shows there that were children's shows. So I played Mowgli in the Jungle Book. I played
Oh,
Hansel and
wow.
Gretel, and that taught me a lot too. Because I mean, again, you got to bring the energy at 9 a.m. For kids,
Yeah.
they'll tell you the truth. If you're not
Yes.
bringing it, like they're not going to bring it back. And so I actually had an idea with Mowgli because again, I just really feel like I have always kind of been that free spirit actor. Look, maybe we should try this or do that. And so I was like, well, he's from the jungle, so let's make the whole audience the jungle. So I basically decided, like, with the director, what if I like start the show and I'm not even on stage? I'm like in the back of the house, and like, I come down and like interact with the
Oh,
kids and,
that is
Oh, that's
sing to them like
wonderful.
my first thing. And then, the big note, I'll finally get up on stage, and that's like, when the show will begin. And they were like, oh man. And I was like, yeah, that sounds fun, right? So I just always have had like such fun creating and collaborating. I think
yeah.
that's something I've realized even at this point in my life, is that even more than acting, which is my first love in life, is that I really truly love collaborating, and I love the different masters of craft that go into TV and film and theater, and just learning from them, but really creating a project and a piece that we can all be proud of at the end of the day.
I love that you took the opportunity to have that one-on-one time with the kids. And I just want to compliment you for, starting out with humble beginnings. That's very exemplar of you. And a lot of people, I feel like I'm not in the industry, right? And I feel like a lot of individuals pretty much get handed things like a present. And it's very inspiring to know how you got started. And at 4 years old, you were like, this is what I want to do. That was the moment for you. And you slowly continue to evolve on your acting, dancing, and singing journey here. And when would you say, let's go into that, like that breaking into that acting role? Like, when would you say that time came for you?
When I knew I wanted to do it professionally.
Mhm.
Good.
Yeah, I
Hmm.
mean, I feel like for me, it was absolutely from the beginning. I mean, I just really felt the impact of storytelling, and I'll tell you a story that impacted me. I was 14, 15 years old at Riverside Dinner Theater. I played Little Patrick and Mame. I actually had a great aunt that was like a real life Auntie Mame for me. Lucille Ball plays it in the movie. It's a great, great show, just about
Oh,
like a kind
wow.
of mother son connection. And I came off the stage at the end. I was about to clear plates, right? At the end of
Hmm.
my shift, right? And there was this woman that made an effort to come up to me, right as I was like coming off of stage, like she was waiting for me. She must have been in her 70s. Again, I'm 14 or 15 at the time, and she came to me and she was like, Matt, I just really wanted to thank you. Your role. And the way that you portrayed little Patrick and the connection that you had with your Auntie May made such an impact on me. I realized tonight, like, I need to make an effort to be closer to my son.
Oh,
And
wow. That's
it was
beautiful.
it was at that moment, like, honestly, where I was like, oh, like, there's real power in what we
Yeah.
do.
Hmm.
There's real impact in what we do. And it just really, it's a moment in time where I would say, to answer your question, Iris, like, it was the moment where I was like, oh, I have to do this. Like, this is
Mm.
something that, like, I knew I loved, but it was at that point where I realized the true power of it. And that's really what sparked me to my next chapter, which was moving back to New York. And I say back to New York because my parents were from there. So, I had family in New York City. So I was one of those, people that moved to New York City, and I wasn't looking up. I was very
Hmm.
focused and driven on finding my people. And the best part about it was I had a home to come to. I lived with my grandma. I'm a grandma's boy at heart. And my grandma Matilda brought me in. It was a time where my aunt actually had moved out and my grandma was going to live all alone. And it was just this time in my life that I'll always be so grateful for, because again, in a big city, a lot of times, like, you can lose your way a little bit. And I had a home to come to every day. And so for me, it
Hmm.
really got me to shape my just my work ethic. And, she was a big proponent of, like, follow your dreams and don't get a job while you're in college, like, really, really, do what you can
Pushing you.
to.
Yeah.
But yeah, just really, like, like let this time be yours. And what a gift it was, because I found myself, like I said, waiting in line sometimes 6 to 8 hours as a non-union actor at the Actors Equity Building, which for your listeners is the Broadway Union Actors Equity. And so they have basically
Mm.
an office in Midtown where you can go upstairs, and there's going to be a lot of actors there waiting to sing their 16 or 32 bars for whatever shows are coming through, whether it be a tour or a Broadway run of, Phantom of the Opera, Les Mis, or what have you. And so it gave me the opportunity to take days like that, right, where I could just, like, be kind of around my people, right? and
Yeah.
and a lot of times, and this is kind of the way I've always reflected on it, like, there were times where, as a non-union actor, I would wait 6 to 8 hours and I wouldn't even get to audition. And most people would think, oh, well,
Oh
that
my
was a fail,
goodness.
that was a failure of a day. But I got to have wonderful conversations with people.
Mm.
I got to connect with people. And
Hmm.
most importantly, it really showed me that, like, my perseverance was going to continue, my drive to make sure that this was something that, I was going to be doing right now in that moment and for the rest of my life.
Absolutely. And that's great, because a lot of people at that moment, they see that as, oh man, I failed, time to give
You
up,
got
I
to keep
can't do
going.
this.
Yeah.
But you
Yeah.
kept going. And what's very important is that you had the support of your family there
Yeah.
with you, not only pushing you, driving you, but also supporting you. That's very important. And you don't hear about that a lot in some of these journeys for a lot of people that
You
are
don't.
getting on the stage, that are actors on Broadway, or actors, on TV or film or anything
It's
like
a
that.
lot of hard work. It's
Very
a lot
much
of hard
so.
work.
Very
Yes.
much so. So
I
let
think
me
a
ask.
lot of people, yeah, I was just going to say, I think a lot of people think that, acting is very forward facing, and it is, right? You're putting
Yeah.
yourself out there. So you see the, awards, you see the red carpet, but if I'm being honest, most actors don't get into it for any of that. They get into it for their love of storytelling and really
Yes.
exploring their own psyche and their own spirituality, whatever it is. And you can find that by diving deep into roles. So I think
Mhm.
I caught the bug early because I knew what an exploration of my life it was going to be to call myself an actor.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
And like you said, you could, one thing you can do is you can feel it through the screen or the stage, what that actor is putting into it. And like you said, they're not looking for the accolades. It's more of a passion, and you can
It
feel that
is.
passion come through. It
Especially like in
translates.
Matt's case, he started with humble beginnings.
Yes.
It's like you had to pay your dues, Matt, to get to where you are at right now. And you still have so much more to go, but it's a deeper meaning, right? It's
Right.
another sense of passion when you start with humble
That's
beginnings
right.
and you do. It's very hard work.
That's
It's
right.
really really
That's
hard.
right. And the background plays a big part in it, in my opinion, with how you're able to succeed and move up. Now, Matt, maybe jumping just a little bit here, but I wanted to ask you, any of the time, after you did the diner theater and then you went back to New York, was there ever a goal in mind to take your talents to Hollywood? And the reason why I ask that is because a lot of times when you hear of actors and actresses getting started in a business, most times you hear, "Oh, I got my start in New York on Broadway or on some stage plays," but the bigger picture is to get to
Los
Hollywood.
Angeles. Yeah,
Yeah,
and that I had a question similar to that. That's a
yeah,
great question.
yeah.
Yes.
So was
New
that
York versus Los Angeles. That's what
right?
I or Hollywood.
Hollywood. So
Yeah.
was that ever in your purview? Were you looking forward to Hollywood, or were you just saying, "Hey, New York is where it's at. This is where I can get my start, and also where I can continue to grow"?
It's a great question from both of you, and I've been reflecting on it a lot recently. I feel like I've always just kind of let the journey take me where I needed to go, and being open to any signs or any openings to explore or reset, because we all do that in life. No
Yeah.
matter what the journey is, we
Mhm.
look for signs, whether we have to divert here or there. I've talked about my grandma. I was very close to her. She passed away a few years ago, but like she was my rock. And
Right.
it was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do in my life was to, take my, my next chapter and my journey west to Los Angeles. But I'll tell you how I did it. I really always gravitated towards people that were nurturers of actors. And I was lucky enough to, ask a lot of people, and they all told me Terry Schreiber was somebody that I needed to meet up with. He was an exceptional acting teacher. And
Hmm.
so I studied with Terry Schreiber for 2.5 years. He had gotten actors like Edward Norton their start, and just
Oh,
an
wow.
off-Broadway director, and just a phenomenal human being. I actually am thinking about calling him this week just to thank him for everything that he's done for me, because it was a big moment in my life where I just was starting to try to, find my way. And I felt like I was coming up a little bit short. I was up for a lot of Broadway roles. And when I say up for, I was like runner up for, a lot of, Broadway roles, like whether
Oh
it be like
Oh
wow.
in
yeah.
in Jersey Boys, or Avenue Q, or
Mhm.
Fiero and Wicked, or like I was close to a lot of them. And that's tough. It's tough when you get so close, but you come up a little bit short. It's sometimes easier when you go in and you just know that you've done your work, but it's not a good fit. And hopefully you made a good enough impact where you'll get brought in. But I was getting to the last part of the audition process, and just coming up a little bit short. And again, I will say for Broadway actors specifically, I mean, there were times where I would probably be spending $500 to $700 a week with different coaches that I was working with at the time.
Mhm.
That was when I was out of college, so I was bartending and basically putting all that money back into my furthering education. Whether it was Ron Shetler for my vocal coach, Michael Levine, my audition coach, or Terry Schreiber, my haven of acting school is what I would say. And,
Wow.
there was this one day where, about 2 years into being in Terry's little 12-person class, and he kept it small for a reason, because he really wanted to nurture actors. Again, just such a lover of actors. And just that's why he became such a grandfather to me. He brought me into his office, and he could tell I was down because I had mentioned it a couple times. Oh yeah, I just missed out on that, or I just missed out on that. And he'd heard it a few times, and so he just felt like I needed some guidance. And so, of course, in typical Terry way, brought me in. This conversation changed my life. It was probably 30 minutes, and
That's all it takes.
it's
Yeah.
all it takes. It
That's all
really
it
is.
takes. Yeah.
100%. And he just really went into, basically knowing my work as an actor and seeing me grow as an actor, and all of the effort that I had put into the craft and how much I loved the craft. And, just understanding that sometimes, the medium isn't right at that time. And so he was the one that told me, and this is, selfless and just a real acknowledgement for how much he loves me, right? Is that he said, maybe you should give LA a shot. Maybe, you should, try to approach TV and film. I really feel like, based on what I'm seeing from you in class, like it could be a really great medium. Now, this is somebody that would be telling me this, that would know that I would be leaving their class, right? So,
Right.
Man,
like
yeah.
it's even more impactful when I think about it, like what a powerful gift he gave me.
Right.
And then, ironically, literally right next door to his office is where I was paired together in a TV and film acting class that I had just signed up for, taught by Peter and Diane Miner. And Peter had directed One Life to Live for many, many years, the soap opera.
Oh, wow.
And I went to the first class, and I was paired together with a friend, still a friend, named Elizabeth. And I went to Peter and Diane afterwards, and I said, get together with Elizabeth. We'll run the scene a few times. And Peter said, oh, no, your scene partner isn't Elizabeth. It's actually Laura. She's taken the class 2 times before, but she couldn't make it this week. Just meet up with her and, run the scene and do your work as an actor, and, and make sure that you're hitting your eye lines and da-da-da-da. And so I did. And she came over to my apartment to rehearse, and I was just fumbling through the script and the call sheet, and I noticed that she had a 540 area code. And I looked at Laura and I said, where are you from in Virginia? Because I'm from Virginia.
Oh, look
And
at that.
and she looked at me and she said, Front Royal. And I said, excuse me?
Wow.
And she said, Front Royal, Virginia. Have you heard about it? And I looked at her in that moment and I said, I'm from Front Royal.
Oh,
And
wow.
And she said, no way.
Beautiful.
Because again, we're like in one of the biggest cities in the world. Like, how is this even possible? And I said, no, my dad's the karate guy across from the Main Street Cinema. And I know this person. And I used to do theater here and da-da-da-da-da. And I was like, well, what about you? And she was like, well, I mean, I went here and I went here and I did theater here. And well, my family owns the Apple House, which is a small little country store off the, Interstate 66 that only somebody in that area would know. I kid you not. On my dresser on 79th and Broadway, I had 3 things from the Apple House with the price tag still on them. And
wow.
and it just was that kismet. So it's like,
Look at that.
when you think about this like happening in my life, it was like that perfect time in life, my life, where I felt like maybe I needed a different path to walk down. And we were paired together, ironically, in a breakup scene from Say Anything, the John Cusack movie, which is a great one if you haven't seen it. And we're it's the scene, actually, if you watch it tonight, you guys should watch it. It's the scene where she gives him the pen and it says, promise you'll write, but it's basically a breakup. And I'm looking at this scene, I'm looking at her, I'm looking at our 540 area code. I'm like, how is this happening right now?
It was destiny. It was meant to be, Matt. That's what it was.
It was meant to be. And I mean, honestly, in that moment, I just remember saying, well, we've already gotten the breakup out of the way. Are you ready to go out on a date?
Wow. I feel like those are one of the moments, like, me being Latina and Keith being Black, like that was a Jesus moment. That was your Jesus moment, baby.
Amen to that. And it really was. It came in that time where I just had that conversation with Terry, and that's I really beautiful. Did. I think like it was one of those things that I felt like needed to explore, but I needed Laura to be in my life to, take the leap. And so we're two kids. We, we spent the holidays, with the family. And then right afterwards, we're packing up 2 apartments. She was on 87th in Amsterdam, me 79th in Broadway. We rented a car. We drove down to Virginia. We unpacked,
Oh,
repacked,
wow.
and we took a, car right across the country, making our stops along the way. Grand Canyon, reflecting, Sedona, reflecting, and really just kind of making it a kumbaya trip. And,
Yeah, an
landed
eat, pray, love
early
thing.
January.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And we did. We took 3 months, and for me,
Beautiful.
it was about finding a place that we could kind of give it a shot. Because again, I remember, that pain that I felt leaving grandma behind, and she understood.
Right.
She wanted me to find my path. She wanted me to find my joy. And I'd saved up a little bit of money from the bar. I think I'd given about a third of it to her just to make sure that she was
Oh,
okay.
that's
Oh man,
wonderful, Matt.
yeah.
That's
Yeah,
wonderful.
again, a grandma's boy
I
through and
love that.
through.
That's right.
And so I did. We landed actually in a place where Laura had done a film with a couple of her friends from NYU, and one of them was a grandfather that like rented a room out in his house in Studio City. And he ironically was from Brooklyn, and he was like this sweet Jewish man named Cy.
Mhm.
And he just really he gave us we basically weren't even paying rent. I think we were paying like $500 a month or something like that, but it was
Oh,
the opportunity for me to still feel like I was coming home every night, because he would make us matzo ball soup. And like
Oh,
I
oh,
felt like
wow.
yummy.
I feel like I still had like a grandparent element, which kind of made me feel like I was still home even
Yeah,
though
like
I
far away from
wasn't.
home, right? Like a,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
Oh,
so we
that's so
stayed with him
nice.
for 3 months, and at the end of it, we just kind of looked at each other, Laura and I, and we were like, I think this is our home now. And we both kind of nodded,
Oh,
and that in a long form is kind of where I made that, to answer your question, Iris, that progression. It was because I think I was just open to where the path would take me. And I think
mm-hmm.
that's always kind of the way that I've been. And lucky for me, for me, I got Terry, I got Laura, and that's kind of where the path took me from New York to LA.
that's wonderful. Really appreciate that story there, Matt. Wonderful,
It's
beautiful
beautiful.
story. Iris and I just, for the first time ever, now I had previously been to California years and years ago in San Francisco, but for the first time, we actually visited Los Angeles
It was
late
something on our
last
bucket
year.
list for sure.
Yeah, and
Nice.
It's
very beautiful,
beautiful.
beautiful out
Yeah.
there. Even though we were caught up in the worst heat wave you guys had in the very
116-degree weather. Oh my
Oh boy.
god.
Oh,
And we're
that's really
Florida
hot.
people. We're used to that, right? But there was nothing like this heat. It was
absolutely,
nothing like it.
There's no
absolutely
humidity to hide it. Like,
right.
For
it's a
real.
desert climate. Yeah, I know. Believe me, I got
No.
family in Florida, and it's a lot different without the humidity for sure.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
So, Matt, I want to take the opportunity to go back to Fabian and talk
Yes.
about the journey to somewhere in the mountain. And let's
Montana.
talk about, or I'm sorry, did I say mountain?
Mountain, yeah,
Wow,
Montana.
Yep.
mountain. Hold on,
It's
let's
close
backtrack.
enough.
Mountains. A lot of mountains. A lot of
It's
mountains.
close enough.
Yeah.
Wait a
Right.
minute. Let's go back. I just wanted to make sure you guys were awake. So, somewhere in Montana. So, let's talk about that because I feel like this film isn't just about different worlds colliding. It's also about resilience and passion. And what drew you to this role of Fabian?
Well, I mean, just really honestly going into the journey aspect of it, I've always kind of been, an actor and really a person that, like, if I can help people that I care about, I will. Another anecdote story, since we're going there today, I love it, is
Yeah,
that
let's
I
do
was
it.
working in a steak restaurant in Valencia, California, and there was a girl there that, had moved down with her husband and had 2 kids, 3 now, and 2 at the time. Now she has 3, and they were hustling. They were struggling. They were both, working restaurant jobs to provide for their family. And they just like the energy that, came off of both of them was just really pure. I just really gravitated to them right away as friends. And, at one
That's
point
nice.
she was struggling and she said, like, I just really feel like I need a representative to get me into some of these doors. And I had seen her work. She's a great actress. And so I was like, yeah, well, I had been with my agent for a while at that point. So I had developed a good relationship with him. And I said, well, give me your stuff and I'll pass it on to my agent, because you can do that when you have a long relationship with an agent. And so
Right.
Yeah. It
um,
goes a long way. It
it goes
definitely
a long
does.
way. It really
Mhm.
does. And it definitely did for this one for sure, is that, she got signed with this agent and, we were really happy. But then in 2019, she realized that, her home in Montana was calling her. So her and Kyle moved back with their children to Montana in 2019 and actually started their own production company. So they kind of got involved with, local filmmakers up there and actors. And it was just like something that I was just so proud of, just kind of following their journey, up there. And then a couple years went by. We lost touch, obviously, a little bit because, she was in Montana, I was in
Yeah,
LA. She
understood.
called, she called me one day and she said, I just came across this script that my friend Brandon wrote. And every time I see one of the lead characters, I see your face. And it was
Oh,
just
that's awesome.
a moment where it's like a friend looking out for a friend. And it really does. I think about that moment all the time because it humbled me in the moment. It's like, you give in life and you hope to receive. And this was just a moment that really was full circle for me and just meant a lot even in the moment. And I remember just kind of tearing up and I said, okay, can I put myself on tape? Like, what are, she sent me all the instructions and what have you. And I put myself on tape and ironically, I loved the script so much that I read it 3 times before I even put my audition on tape. And I studied with my acting teacher and I felt very connected with the character very
So it
early
felt
on.
personal for you. That's
It,
what you're trying to convey. Like the role felt very personal to you, it sounds like.
Oh, 100%. Like so much of this character, I
Oh,
mean,
that's so good.
is personal to me. And I mean, really the first character that I've ever truly fallen in love with is Fabian. And so I really do. I definitely felt connected with him very early on. And I really felt connected to the story at large because it was, again, one of those impactful stories, like going back to, that woman at the dinner theater that said, what an impact it had made. So I felt like this was a story that was designed for someone like what I've always dreamed of doing as an actor to be a part of. And so I did the work. I came to my acting coach out here and nowadays you can shoot a scene 10, 20, 30 times and take 17 if you really want to. But I just did it once, and my
That
acting
was
teacher
it.
kind of
Look at
made
that.
this face, and I said, "What does that mean?" And he said, I wouldn't change a thing. Like, you have a very clear take on what you want to do with this character. And I think if you do it over and over again, you're just going to second guess yourself. Like, you are really, really connected to this character in a big way. So I would just send it off and see what happens. So I did. And then, comes the hardest part as an actor. You have to wait, right? But that's part of the job, right? That's part of the
Yeah.
gig. You learn ways of doing that, whether it's, doing a kata in the backyard or, watching a football game. Like, you find ways of escaping and enjoying different aspects of your life. That way you don't put the pressure on yourself, that you enjoy the audition and you let it go. And so
How
I
long did
did.
you have to wait for, Matt? I'm sorry to
So
cut you off there. I
yeah,
was just
so
curious.
about a month from the first audition, and then I got a call from Jared Broxterman, the local casting director, and he said that he wanted to set me up with a producer session with Eden Matson, the producer, and Brandon Smith, the writer and the director of the film. And so we got on a Zoom. It was probably, about 45 minutes. And I just found myself being so curious about the story because it was such a big story and such a pivotal story in a lot of what we're going through in our society. And I think we only, honestly, Iris, ran the scene maybe once, twice. Like, it was, it was really kind of more about the conversation because you have to remember so
Hmm.
much of this is a collaborative thing. It's, you really being invested in the story. And from that, knowing that you're a committed actor that's going to do the work necessary to serve the story. and I think I conveyed that. And then a few weeks went by, probably about 3 weeks again, and I got a call from Jared that I'd been granted the role. And I got to be honest, the second that I hung up the
What a
phone,
blessing.
it was a blessing. I was so elated in the moment. It just felt like a huge gift bestowed upon my life
What
that
was
I
the
was
first
going to.
thing you did? Like, what was the first feeling when they told you got the part?
I mean, pure joy, pure elation. But it's interesting that the second that I hung up the phone, the first thought that I had was, "Okay, Matt, it's time to get to work," because
Mm.
that's when you really earn the
It's
role.
about to
It's like
get started. Yeah.
it's about to get started. I mean, it's no different than someone making the football team. It's like, yeah, you were a high draft pick, but what does that mean? You got to
Right.
earn it. You got to
That's right.
earn it, and champions are made off the field, and so it's no different than being an actor. It's all the reps that I had with Terry Schreiber and my degree that I got in acting and all of the shows that I've done. Like, it's time to bring all of that work to one of the biggest roles in my life, so that I can serve again the director and the producers and the writer and all the people that are going to be working so hard, the crew, to put this thing together. Because indie films, I mean, they are a labor of love, and
They
so
really are.
Mhm.
they are, and you want to pay
Mhm.
honor to that. And this is a big story that Brandon wrote, so it very early on for me was, I need to leave it all on the table. And so I really felt like I did, and that
And
I did. I put a lot of my own work into it, and just really happy with the
you
process.
you really did, Matt. And this isn't a small feat, even if it was a minor role, you had a starring role here. I
Yeah.
mean, you're the
That was a
director
pretty big
in
deal.
this movie here, where the story is about this rancher who, is on hard times, and you guys are trying to film on his property. And so, it really resonates with the area you filmed in Montana. So I'm sure it resonated with some of the people that own land there, or probably in other rural
Or the unique
areas.
settings of it. Yeah, it's a
Absolutely.
like I could only imagine like Montana's landscapes play a huge part of that film. I'm alone. I
Yes,
mean, it's such a
absolutely.
and just to put that out there, I've been dying to go to
I
Montana.
haven't, but
Oh my god, I just want to see
that's
it
one
because
of
of the
us.
scenery.
I'll
But I
let you
mean,
go. I'm
the
scared to go
film
that far.
well no well, but the film had a unique setting, and then added coupled with that, he felt so connected to the character. It's just
Yes.
it definitely sets it apart from other
Yes.
acting
And then
roles.
also he had some veterans there, right? He had Graham McTavish. He's been in Aquaman, and one of my favorite, that's what I was going to ask in the early beginning, Michelle Hurd. Now, I used to
Yes.
watch her, had a little crush on her on Special Victims Unit
She's
for Law and
beautiful.
Order. So, how was that, Matt, coming in with these veteran actors that have been doing this for quite some time, working with them, learning from them, and collaborating with them? How was that for you in this movie?
I always say it like this, with this film specifically, I've already won. I just
Mm.
because of the relationships that I have with these people. Speaking to Graham, he's the first person in my life that's ever called me mate, which is a sign of Scottish
Oh, wow.
camaraderie.
I
And he
like
said
Yes.
that
it.
name.
He said
Yeah.
it that, like, right as we were leaving, like right as we got our breakfast together, as we were about to part ways. I'll see you, mate. And I think it
Oh,
was that
wow.
sign of camaraderie, of like the space that we had given each other to tell this big story together, because we are very two unique energies. And Fabian is big, he's passionate, and Graham is just such a nuanced, subtle actor, can translate so much with his eyes. And so we do have two very uniquely different energies in this film together. But we had so many behind the scenes conversations that were extraordinary, especially with a scene that we have that's 10 pages, just the two of us, which is not done in modern cinema that often. And it's a conversation piece, and it's a risk. And Brandon wrote a big scene that goes into all of the, we'll call them disagreements or arguments that we're having internally in our country, whether it be, socially, politically, religious,
Hmm.
gender, right? It's all of these different arguments that he wrapped up into one scene. But we are finally at a place where we are listening to each other. And I think what this scene for me it was the scene that made me truly fall in love with this project, because it's so impactful to have a scene where, you know, two people can come out of it that are two uniquely different, but they're starting to, you know, respect each other. And I've found in my life that respect is the highest form of love that you can give another person. And I think that
Absolutely.
Yes.
this scene really does that, you know, because we start to honor each other's legacies. And when you start to let people in, it really does become very, very hard, if not impossible, to hate them. And you don't have to agree on everything, because honestly, you never will. And that's
Right.
what Brandon does so eloquently in this script, is that we walk away at the end two still very uniquely different people, but we come together for a moment and we understand each other, and it feels like a path forward. So, I mean, again, as you can hear me tell you the story about even this one scene, you can see how impactful this story was to me. And I mean,
Yeah.
off screen, I mean, with people like Michelle Hurd, I mean, I consider her a big sister. Her and her husband Garrett Dillahunt, we have had some incredible conversations.
Mhm.
You know, she's really opened up to me about things in her career and in her life that like have really resonated with me. And she just loves actors so much, and she gives them so much space to really feel like no matter where they are in their career, like they belong. And she's on the SAG-AFTRA board, so she really is, she's a lover and a fighter of actors.
You
I
could tell,
honestly,
yeah.
I mean, I could go on for hours about how
Oh,
much I
yeah.
love her. She really, like, we quickly became like a brother sister. And ironically, she plays the producer in the film, which is a real kind of life brother sister relationship. When you're making a movie, is the producer usually is the one that has to reel the director back and be like, no, like, we can't do this, or we have to, you know, we're running against the clock, or we need to divert here, we need to figure something out here. And I think that really translated on the screen too. When you see our scenes together, is that she's the person that can give me that knowing look,
Mhm.
and I'm listening. She's got my full attention. I gotta be honest, Michelle to Matt is no different. Like, she opens up to me, and I just like am a student of the game, like I always have been. And for her to give that to me, and for Graham to give that to me as two seasoned pros, you understand why they're pros. And I think it really comes down to the fact that they give so much space to actors, because I know that I'm more of the quote unquote unknown actor. But, you know,
Mhm.
even Garrett, Michelle's husband, because I've actually sat next to him at two of the premieres now. And he is just an extraordinary person. Is that, you know, he said, like, this might be your break, but you've been, you know, acting your whole life. Like, it's not like
Right.
you're new to this. And I know what he was saying with that. He was saying, like, you belong. Like, this isn't like a fluke. Like, this
Right.
isn't,
Right.
he was giving that to me.
Mhm.
And when actors, like, again, this is what I'll say about actors. Because again, it has 100% be my experience in my life, hand to God, is that they are some of the most selfless people that you will ever meet in your life. Like, they really
Mhm.
are. And it's just because they really they live their life in exploring emotions. So they're really with you when they're talking to you. I mean, like, I'm visualizing like a conversation with Graham or Michelle right now, and it's like when they're looking at you and they're speaking to you, like, they're really, really connecting with you on a way
Right.
that, like, you don't necessarily have with many other people. They're just these deep, rich conversations. And so that's where I go back to this journey just being the ultimate win in my life, and a gift that I'll hold forever dear.
Oh, man. Oh, and I love that. And thank you so much for sharing that. This overall has been such an amazing conversation. Thank you so much. And before we wrap up, I just want to ask you any last words of encouragement, and describe it maybe in one or two sentences if you can, for our listeners who are just chasing their creative dreams just like you. What advice would you have for them?
The journey is the destination. And I know that's hard to hear, but you really do need to enjoy all the little moments of it, whether it's a conversation, whether it's an audition. It's a chance to learn, it's a chance to grow, it's a chance to improve your practice. So enjoying every part of it is a key element. And when you do really find joy in what you do, you become a beacon of light. And I really do believe that things will be attracted to you and you will find your path forward.
Matt, before we let you go, let me ask you this. Can you tell our audience where they can meet, where they can
Yes, where they
find
could find
the
you.
movie somewhere in Montana, because we know it was released in January, and a big kudos to not only you, Matt, but the whole
Yes.
crew, because it was expanded to 500 theaters, which is a big
That's
accomplishment.
beautiful.
But now that we're in a different month, where can they find to watch this movie starring you? And then also, where can they follow you at?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you so much, Ronnie. Iris, it has been a pleasure talking to you today and being on your show. This has been a part of my journey, and these conversations mean a lot to me. So thank you so much for having me on today. I can only do so many social media platforms or my head starts spinning the wrong way. So I stick to Instagram. Follow me at Matt Drago, MattDrago, at Matt Drago. From there, you'll have my link tree. It's got all my other social media platforms, but it's also got my 2 websites, mattdrago.com for my acting and dragonhunterproductions.com for my production company. You've also got my IMDb there. So if you want to see my past and future projects, those will be up there as well. And again, I bring all elements of it to, my social media, whether it's my career happenings or my personal journey. They're one and the same for me. So give me a follow there and be in the know for everything that's happening.
Oh, thank you, Matt. And I am excited to see what upcoming projects and exciting things you have. So we'll definitely be in a lookout for that. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yes.
Thank you so much, my friends. I really appreciate you having me on today.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Matt. And we look forward to seeing great things with you and having you back on with Conversations with Ronnie Keith and Iris. We really look forward to all of that.
Thank you
Yes,
so
sir.
much.
I would love that. Thank you.
Thank you. This has been Conversations with
Ronnie Keith
and Iris.
Thank you.